Alright, in this video what we're going to do is provide a quick down and dirty for what C# is. Now we all know it's a programming language. We've been using it to write some very simple applications up to this point. But what I'd like to do is take just a moment and present to you how Microsoft defines C#. On their website they have C#, which is pronounced C#, not C#. Now, let me jump outside of what Microsoft said for just a second. You'd be surprised how many people I find that call it C#. It is C#. That is a sharp symbol from, like, sheet music. Okay? All right, good. Now that that's out of the way, let's continue. Back to what Microsoft says. C# is a programming language designed for building a wide range of enterprise applications that run on the .NET framework. An evolution of Microsoft C and Microsoft C++, C# is simple, modern, type-safe, and object-oriented. C# code is compiled as managed code, which means it benefits from the services of the Common Language Runtime. These services include language interoperability, garbage collection, enhanced security, and improved versioning support. Wow, a lot of really cool sounding stuff that pretty much means nothing to a complete beginner in the world of programming. That's why I don't want to spend a lot of time on what C# is, other than it's a really cool object-oriented language that's easy to use. So I have thrown together some quick highlights that we'll talk about, and then we'll move on. And as we progress further and further into this course, you guys will know exactly what C# is. So some quick highlights. Back in June of 2000, Microsoft announced both the .NET platform and a new programming language called C#. So as you guys can see, C#'s been around for a while now, but it is still considered a new language. C#'s purpose is to allow development of applications that run on the .NET platform. Now the key word here is .NET, not Windows. Any device that supports the .NET framework will allow execution of applications or services written with C#. That's a very powerful statement. So learning how to program in C# or any other .NET enabled language leads to some amazing capabilities with what you can do. Right, Logan?
Right. You have a very wide spectrum of users that could potentially use your program. Since all they have to do is be .NET compliant and have the .NET framework, they can take your app and run it with no further worries. No worries about requirements or platform-specific requirements.
Ooh, platform-specific. So I could have stuff running on a PDA, a smartphone that might support the .NET Compact framework, or Xbox 360, or Linux, or Mac. Wow, that's pretty powerful. So moving right along, these are things we're going to come back to a little bit later and talk more about. C# is basically the next evolutionary step in C, C++, and Java. That one is very important to me. It's the next evolutionary step. It is not the next iteration in C++. Again, you'd be surprised how many beginners I talk to that think C# is kind of like the next C++. It's like part 2 or version 2. It's not like that. It is a new language constructed from ground up, but with a lot of things learned from C, C++, and Java. So they kind of took the best of all of these worlds and mixed them all together. Now, C# is a very simple language to learn. There's less than 90 keywords in C#. And if you're coming from a C, C++, or Java background, you're going to find yourself sliding right into coding C# source code with, well, almost no problem at all, because the syntax looks very, very similar. Let's see, what else do we want to say? C# is object-oriented. Man, let me tell you what, boy is it. Every single thing is an object or a member of an object. That's it. Everything's an object. So it is very heavily object-oriented. And finally, C# does not compile to your standard native executable applications that everyone has come to love and know. You know, when you're working over in C or C++ and you compile and you get your executable and, hey, here's my exe. Try doing that with C# and then giving it to your buddy to run on their computer. And see how quick it takes for that computer to complain if they don't have the .NET runtime on their system. Ah, there I go. I'm throwing out .NET again. .NET is really, really important because C# was the premier language for developing on the .NET platform. So now there, of course, there are many, many different languages available that support .NET, but it's all about this .NET, which we're going to be talking about in the next video. But instead of compiling to native code run by your operating system, instead it compiles to an intermediate language. That's right. The C# compiler compiles to an intermediate language known as IL code, or often MS-IL code, and is then processed by the .NET framework when your programs run. So basically, when you compile it to an exe, it's called an assembly. And that assembly needs the .NET runtime to actually be able to execute, and that .NET runtime will handle the execution of your assembly when you run it.
Right. That's why anyone would need to have the .NET Framework runtime in order to run the program. But on the other hand, anyone that does in fact have that framework can run your program.
That's right. So that's the quick down and dirty of what C# is. Again, as we progress through this course, you're going to get a much stronger understanding of what they mean when they start talking about things like type safe and, object-oriented, etc., etc. So with that, let's go ahead and move on to a basic overview of .NET.